Starting off at number 10, we have Father Divine. Father M.J. Major Gellis Divine was born around 1880, and he founded an independent Christian church in the 1920s. His church was mainly made up of African American worshipers, and when certain white people, though, objected to his church, well, he was sent to jail. And then 2 days after he was sentenced, the judge on the case just dropped dead, suddenly, out of nowhere. So they asked Father Divine about it, and he said, and I quote, "I hated to do it." So this case and his divine retribution made him very, very, very popular, and his followers accepted him as God on earth. During the Great Depression, his peace missions opened across America to feed people who couldn't really afford food. And he also preached that he wanted an end to racial segregation, and he's actually now recognized as an early civil rights activist, despite him being viewed as being God on earth. And in recent years though, just less than 20 of his followers remain. Number 9, George Washington. George Washington is generally seen in a class of his own because he was America's first president, and he really shaped the United States as we know it today. Now get this, if you go to the Capitol in Washington DC, you will be able to look up at the dome and you'll see a painting of George Washington. This painting here is called the Apotheosis of Washington, and in the painting he's shown flying up to heaven. Now, on top of this symbolism of George Washington being a god, he's also worshipped as a kami or deity or god in some branches of Hawaiian Shinto. Number 8 brings us to Sugawara no Michizane. Sugawara no Michizane was a scholar and poet in the 9th century Japan. He was a high-ranking person in society, and convinced that Sugawara no Michizane was plotting treason, the emperor banished him from the capital and made him the governor of a small island. This was a very disrespectful blow, like a slap in the face. But over when he was governing that small island, he passed away. And then in the years that followed, those who had worked to banish him just fell dead mysteriously. And the capital was actually hit with floods and fire and different types of plagues. So these were all linked to the vengeful spirit of Sugawara no Michizane. To appease his supposed spirit, he was reinstated to his high office even though he wasn't alive, and then he was later raised to the status of deity in the Shinto religion. Now known as Tenjin, he's the god of learning and scholarship. Jiddu Krishnamurti comes at number 7. Theosophy was a mystical philosophy popular in the 19th century and early 20th centuries. Some theosophists came to believe that the spiritual entity called Maitreya, or the world teacher, would come to lead the world into a new age. So back in the year 1911, one theosophist thought that he found Maitreya. As a young man, Jiddu Krishnamurti, he supposedly experienced these mystical visions of relatives who had passed away, and the theosophist took him from his family in India and taught him the ways of life of the Western world to eventually, hopefully, lead him to become the Maitreya to change the world. But hey, this Maitreya ended up not even really believing in any of this stuff, and he completely left the movement in the year 1930. He continued to teach his own philosophy though, but he didn't claim that he was God or anything. He was like, nah bruh, that's not for me. Number 6 brings us Antinous. In the Roman Empire, it was common for emperors to be raised to the status of a god after they passed away. Mothers, wives, children, you name it, they would also sometimes become gods too, especially if they were closely related to the emperor. Emperor Hadrian, however, made his young male lover Antinous into an object of a god. The two were inseparable. So even though certain homosexual acts weren't considered bad or shameful or anything like that, it was still very unusual and uncommon to flaunt that sort of behavior in public. It was a scandal though, but the emperor was too powerful for anything to happen to him in terms of public opinion, and in AD 130, Antinous, he drowned in the Nile under suspicious circumstances. Some people say he was murdered, some people say it was a suicide, maybe he was sacrificed, they don't really know. But either way, the emperor was devastated, so he built a city called Antinopolis, where Antinous had lost his life, and also shrines were set up in honor of Antinous throughout the empire, and he was worshipped as, or at least seen as, a god. Halfway to number 5, we have Lou de Pellingbore. Lorenz Voorthuizen. He was a Dutch fisherman who would become known as Lou de Pellingbore, which is Lou the eel seller, and he claimed to be the embodiment of God. Apparently, he came to this conclusion at the age of 29 years old, shortly after meeting his girlfriend at that time. And he claimed that he was immortal and had the ability to heal sick people. This led, of course, to some big problems when a 14-month-old child of one of his followers passed away because he did not receive medical care. So yeah, he wasn't healed. Lou himself passed away in the year 1968 in Belgium, and despite this, several people still keep faith in Lou and maintain a website to bring his teachings to the entire world. Imhotep comes in at number 4. The oldest standing monument of cut stone is the step pyramid of the pharaoh Zoser. While the pharaohs of Egypt were seen as gods, it was the architect of this tomb who would become a famous god. Imhotep was the pharaoh's chief advisor, and this pyramid has become one of the great symbols of the ancient Egyptian civilization. Within 100 years of Imhotep passing away, he was seen as a demigod with medicinal powers, and Imhotep 2,000 years later reached the status of a full god under the Persian Empire. I couldn't do this video without including Haile Selassie. Haile Selassie was the 225th and last emperor of Ethiopia. He's also known as Rastafari, and the incarnation of God and the Messiah in the Rastafarian religion. Although he gave Ethiopia a constitution which declared the emperor to be sacred, well, it was a prophecy from another part of the world that made him into a god. So Marcus Garvey campaigned for black rights in the country of Jamaica, which happens to be my home country where I was born. He also said, "Look to Africa when a black king should be crowned, for the day of deliverance is near." This was taken to be a prophecy. So when Haile Selassie was crowned in the year 1930, it looked as if deliverance was truly near. Also, many Rastafarians trace Haile Selassie's lineage back to King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Those familiar with the history of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam will know the significance of King Solomon. But either way, in the year 1934, Italy invaded Ethiopia, and in 1936, Haile Selassie went into exile. Now, Haile Selassie returned to Ethiopia in 1941, and in 1966, Haile Selassie visited Jamaica and was greeted by thousands of Rastafarians at the airport. Now, he didn't outright deny that he was divine. So yeah, that's one of the big reasons why he's still revered as a god by Rastafarians today. Now, number 2 is just, yeah, okay. Prince Philip. Most people know Prince Philip as the husband of the British Queen, but did you know that he was also a god? On the island of Tanna, a story exists of a son of a mountain god who traveled across the ocean to find a powerful wife. Now, this god was supposed to have pale skin. So when the villagers, they heard of Prince Philip, who actually did in fact cross the sea from his home to marry one of the most powerful women in the entire world, they came to see him as being a god. Now, in the South Pacific, groups have popped up based on having contact with Europeans known as cargo cults. And by performing certain acts, they believe that they will cause more technological advanced societies to deliver goods to them. So the worship of Prince Philip is just one form that cargo cults have taken. There are others, but I'm just talking about Prince Philip in this one. The followers of the Prince Philip movement hoped that he would one day come to live with them, but clearly that's not going to happen because we all know now that he passed away in the year 2021. And we end this episode off with Jesus, probably the most popular person on this list. Generally, historians agree that a man named Jesus of Nazareth, he did in fact exist. Now, most Christians believe that Jesus was both human and also God at the same time. While there has been a lot of theological debate over the nature of Jesus, Trinitarian Christians generally believe that Jesus is God in the flesh, God the Son, and fully God and fully man. Now, as God the Son, Jesus is worshipped by 2 billion Christians around the world, and Christians point to various passages in the Bible to support their claim that God would come in the form of a Messiah to be sacrificed for the sins of the world. So at number 10, pigs were considered sacred in ancient Egypt. Now, the pig, it watches over the storms, darkness, deserts, and chaos. They even had a ritual where they sacrificed pigs in the name of goddess Demeter. The goddess looked after grain, fertility, as well as purity. Now, she also cherishes youth and preserves marriages and nature. Also, the Celts worshipped a god of swine called Machus, and after the prayer ceremony, they cooked pork. It was served as part of the ritual. Now, moving on to number 9, let's look at the snake. Serpent deities are worshipped in Karnataka, India, and the worshipping of snakes can be seen in many ancient cultures and traditions, especially in Indian culture. Lord Shiva wore a nag, which is an Indian cobra, around the neck as an ornament. That is why the cobras are most sacred to them. A festival called Nag Panchami is celebrated where all people worship snakes. Now, people also offer milk to the snakes, and then they have various different rituals of worship that they perform to the snake. Now, serpents are not only worshipped in India, but they are also worshipped in America. Also, the Egyptians, they worshipped a variety of snake gods, and in some Native American tribes, the snake is the god that controls wind as well as thunderstorm. Coming in at number 8, we have the tiger. According to the myth and culture of China, the tiger is one of the 12 zodiac animals. According to the Eastern Asia culture, the tiger is a symbol of royalty, anger, and fearlessness. Kunming, a suburb in China, is an attraction for tourists where tigers are worshipped. Now, in Hinduism, tigers are associated with gods Shiva and Durga, and there's also a festival called Bagjatra, and this festival is celebrated in Nepal. In many parts of Vietnam, tiger temples can be found as well, and there are statues of tigers at the entrance of these temples. They believe that keeping the statues of tigers in the temples and palaces will keep evil spirits away from entering the place. From there, we move on to cattle at number 7. Ancient Egyptians, Zoroastrians, as well as Greeks and Hindus consider cattle holy creatures. They mostly worship cows and buffalo and slaughter ox in the name of God. In South India, for example, a ritual known as Toda is performed where every year a bull calf is sacrificed and is eaten by adult males. They celebrate the birthdays of bulls every year, and later, when they die, they mummify their bodies and hide them in a tomb. Cows are most respectable in Hindu culture, of course, and that leads us to number 6. The people of Thailand believe that the white elephant contains the soul of a dead person. Elephant statues were built as seats of the souls in Sumatran culture. North Borneo culture has a completely different meaning. There was a story of a tribe chief that had collected a certain number of human heads. Wooden elephant figurines were then placed on the top of a bamboo pole. In India, Lord Ganesha has the head of an elephant, and a festival called Alunam is celebrated where unmarried women worship elephants by dancing and singing songs. Now for number 5, this animal is the monkey. According to the Chinese zodiac, monkeys are at number 9 in the 12-year cycle of animals. Hanuman is a monkey god figure for Hindus, and now some Buddhists believe that monkeys are an incarnation of Buddha. Over in Japan, monkeys are seen as teaching the proverbial principle to see, hear, and speak no evil. Over in Togo and French West Africa, monkeys are also worshipped there as well. From there, let's look at wolves at number 4. According to the mythologies of Eurasia and North America, the wolf holds a significant position. In many cultures, wolves are identified with a warrior. Also, the name of God of the Tlingit community means wolf. The shamanic Turkic believe that they are descendants of wolves also. Now, the wolf is often related to the Greek gods Zeus, Apollo, Artemis, as well as Leto, and they say that wolves seem to act as divine messengers of the god. Number 3 leads us to man's best friend, also known as dogs. Dogs carry religious significance in Nepal and India. In Nepal, dogs are worshipped in a 5-day festival called the Toihar Festival, and in Hinduism, dogs are considered a messenger of the god of demise. It is also believed that dogs are the guards of heaven, and dogs are also worshipped by the Nosari tribe of Western Asia. Coming in at number 2, we have goats. In ancient times in Syria, goats were covered with silver necklaces and were left open on roads on the day of the king's wedding. It was believed that they carry evil in them, and in Northern Europe, the community Lezi has goat horns, ears, and legs, and in certain parts of Africa, goats were used for divination by some people. Goats are also worshipped in Greece and in Egypt. Now, for number 1, this animal is the horse. Turkish and Indo-European people mostly worship horses. Now, it's believed that the god of water, Poseidon, was the god of the sea, storms, earthquakes, as well as the god of horses. So there's a significance to horses there. Mules and horses are holy to Romans as well. And in Hinduism, the god named Hayagriva, well, if you take a look, he has a horse head. Gonds, which is a tribe in India, also worship horses. Horses are commonly worshipped in Europe as well, and a bachelor is wrapped with a horse in Balkan culture to transfer the sexual power of the horse to the individual. Starting off at number 10, we have the universe. The concept generally falls under pantheism, which is a belief that reality is identical with the divine, or said in a different way, that all things make up an all-encompassing and transcendent God, and this is referred to as the universe. Now, the pantheist belief does not recognize a distinct personal God that has any definite form. It is believed that the universe is here to serve all, and we can attract people, circumstances, and thoughts into our lives all through the frequency of our dominant thoughts that we emit into the universe. Next up at number 9, we have Amun-Ra. Amun-Ra was the head of all the ancient Egyptian gods, and in the early Egyptian civilization, Amun-Ra was worshipped as 2 separate gods. There's Amun, who was the god who created the universe, and then Ra, who was the god of the sun and light. Ra is believed to travel across the sky every single day inside of a burning boat. The god Zeus comes in at number 8. One of the most popular gods in this episode is Zeus. And Zeus is a god of the sky, thunder, law, and justice according to the ancient Greeks. He is viewed as the chief of the other gods, and usually Zeus is portrayed with a scepter in one hand and a thunderbolt in the other hand, and this symbolizes, of course, his dominance, his power, and his authority. The ancient Greek followers today are called Hellenists, and Zeus's name is thought to have originated from the ancient Greek word for bright. Also, another ancient Greek god, or Greek goddess in this case, Aphrodite. Aphrodite is the ancient Greek goddess of love, beauty, desire, and sexuality. Aphrodite had a much wider significance though than the traditional view as just being the goddess of love and sexuality. She was worshipped by men and women as well as heads of state, and she also played an important role in the commerce and the politics and warfare of ancient Greek. Aphrodite was worshipped as the protector of those that traveled by sea, as well as the protector of prostitutes. And she's also comparable to the Roman goddess Venus. Number 6 brings us Ganesha. Ganesha is a Hindu deity with the head of an elephant and the body of a human being. Ganesha is a son of Shiva and the goddess Parvati in Hindu tradition, and he grants success, knowledge, and wealth. In Hinduism, Lord Ganesha is worshipped to start off any sort of occasion or ceremony. Halfway in at number 5, we have the god Horus. Horus was a very important ancient Egyptian god. The name Horus means the one far above, and he's also commonly known as Heru or Har by the Greeks. Now, Horus was originally the sky god, but he's also known as the god of war, the god of hunters, among other titles, and he played the role of the protector of the ruler of Egypt. It's also from Horus where we get the all-seeing eye, which is linked to secret societies like the Illuminati. So very popular symbol. You can find this thing everywhere. Moving on now, we have Brahma up next. In Hinduism, the creation of the world and the universe and everything seen and unseen is attributed to Brahma. He's depicted as having 4 faces looking in each direction, and while Brahma is often credited as the creator of the world, he is described as being born from a lotus coming from another Hindu god, Vishnu. However, Brahma is supreme in the triad of the great Hindu gods, which includes Shiva and Vishnu. Now, in Hinduism, there's a spiritual concept called Brahman, and it's believed to be far older than the deity Brahma. And many scholars say that Brahma may have come about as a personal conception and visible icon of the god that had no form, or the universal principle that Hindus called Brahman. The god Shiva comes in at number 3. Shiva is one of the most worshipped of all of the Hindu gods. He's viewed as Anant, which means infinite, and the god of the yogis. He's also the destroyer of the world, and he's given the title of destroyer, but in a positive sense, like, destroying the ego and attachment to old harmful habits. He's seen as a great purifier, and Shiva is also probably the most popular Hindu deity because of his unique attributes. Only 2 gods left. Number 2 brings us Allah. Allah is how Muslims refer to the one God. Now, Muhammad, who was the final prophet in Islam, was a messenger of Allah, and it was believed that the angel Gabriel came from God and delivered the words of the Quran to the prophet Muhammad at the age of 40. And then at that time, Muhammad began to preach about Allah, that God is one, and that surrender to this God is the only way. And now Islam is the 2nd largest organized religion in the entire world, next to Christianity. Allah is a being who's unlike any other, who has no set form, doesn't look like a human or any sort of creation. No one can see Allah, but Allah can see all. And finally, at number 1, the most popular god worshipped is Jesus. With over 2.2 billion Christians in the world, Jesus Christ is the central figure of Christianity and the most worshipped God in the world currently today. Unlike normal humans, it's believed that he lived in the heavens before he was born into the earth. And he's considered to be God, equal with God the Father, and also equal with the Holy Spirit. It's believed that the record of his teachings can be found in the New Testament of the Bible, and that he came to die for the sins of human beings, and then he ended up rising from the grave and ascending into heaven, and now Christians await for the return of Jesus.